Shabbat Shalom to everybody listening. I'm out here sitting as the term Shabbat indicates, sitting, and not just rest, but actually sitting. And so I'm out here with the kids in the woods by the house, and just doing some sitting meditation. And I would advise that anybody who wants to really feel connected to the original intent of Shabbat, take some time this Shabbat and every Shabbat to go and sit for at least an hour during the course of the evening or during the day, depending on what time of the year and the sun. As you can see, it's very nice out right now. I have a little bit of greenery appearing. In any event, this video is part of a series that I'm going to do in this period of the year coming up, this period of the Jewish calendar coming up. As you know, most of you know, the holiday of Pesach is coming up, Passover. And in relation to that is the period of counting the Omer. And this period, part of this period, 40 days of this period, is the historical Jewish Essenic Sabian month that was called in Arabic Ramadan. And this was really a period more than a month. If people know anything about the pre-Islamic Arabic calendar, there were not 12 months, and they were not of consistent length. And so the Quran takes the perspective that both the sun and the moon, if you read carefully, the Quran says, should be used to calculate 12 months. And indeed, there are 12 months in the Jewish calendar, which is calculated using both the sun and the moon. Even the leap year is an extension of Adar. So this is another issue, but it's part of a series that I'm doing on Islamic origins and the historical Muhammad. Of course, this is what I do a lot of videos on and a lot of writings on, and it's really the core, maybe the epicenter of my research and the work that I do in my university studies, and really what I've been doing for a good majority of my life at this point is really trying to get to the root of the teachings of various prophets and scriptures, teachers, sages, and so on. Whether it's the historical Muhammad or the historical Jesus, all of these inquiries are really what a lot of my stuff focuses around. So as I noted, this is going to be something that happens during that period of the original Essenic fast of 40 days, preceding the month of, preceding the holiday of Shavuot, after Pesach. Now, in this first, I guess, installment, this Shabbat, aside from just this introductory message, what I'd like to talk about is one of the main contentions that people have, and that is this business of the science of hadith. People talk about a science of hadith, even well-meaning people. As Joseph Schacht said in his On the Origins of Mohammedan Jurisprudence, Imam al-Shafi was ultimately the originator of what we know today as Sharia, and he did this by using hadith literature to supersede the Quran, and Schacht demonstrates this amply. And many people know this. This is not something, this is not like a brand new idea or a Western idea. There are many cases where people will use hadith to supersede the teachings of the Quran. And yet, when people speak of the science of hadith, they say that one of the principles of this is that the hadith cannot contradict the Quran. There are numerous examples of so-called sahih hadith that indeed do contradict the Quran, sometimes directly, sometimes in principle. Sahih hadith promoting female genital mutilation, pedophilia, things like that. So when people say that there's a science of hadith, what we have to remember is that this word for science is actually ilm. It's actually the word for knowledge. So when somebody says that they follow a science of hadith, these ahadith that were written down centuries after Muhammad, what they really mean is that they have a knowledge of the isnad, a knowledge of the asanid. And they're calling this today a science because we're in a scientific era. So they've adopted this term and they've tried to appropriate it for something that's anything but scientific and that does not follow the scientific method. Now, Joseph Schacht demonstrates that the earlier ahadith have worse asanid. So they have worse isnads. That is, the asanid get better with time. They get more sahih. And this is not what we should expect logically. They didn't find a cache of, the Dead Sea Scrolls of hadith literature. So how could they have gotten better? How did they find these ahadith with better asanid? The answer is that they didn't. Once Shafi had sort of codified the rules of validating ahadith, people realized that if they were going to fabricate ahadith, and we have sources that say that there were hundreds of thousands of fabricated ahadith. So we know people were fabricating ahadith, and so now all they had to do is fabricate the isnad. And who in the world would have been able to verify this without a time machine? They certainly didn't have documentation of the ahadith that people narrated, except for the ahadith themselves. So you simply fabricate the isnad, and voila, you have a fabricated hadith that is now accepted by people who believe that they have a science of hadith. And it is ultimately with these ahadith that we see a new religion emerge that uses Islam, the verb Islam, as a proper noun, and really exerts itself and separates itself as a distinct and different religion from the groups that the Quran is addressing. So hadith is fundamental to this, and anyone will tell you this. They'll say, how could you know how to do this? How could you know this or this or this or that without hadith? So they accept that ahadith are fundamental to defining their religion, their practice. And the answer, of course, is that you only need that if you have divorced your religion and your practice from the Kitab Allah that the Quran refers to, namely the Bible, Kitab, the Bible that the Quran says, mu'mineen, and ahadith actually even say, mu'mineen, the believers. This is the Arabic term that Jews used for self-designation until about the 10th century CE. That if you are a mu'min, then you accept all of the kutub Allah, all of the manifestations of the Kitab Allah, or the Bible. And of course, the term Quran means recitation, and we see this term applied to the Zabur in Hadith literature, and we see that in Judaism people say Kiryat HaTorah. So this is the same term, Kiryat, Quran. And it indicates the same thing we see in hadith literature, that the Zabur is called the Quran, and there's a way to ascertain the probability of a hadith. We don't have to throw out a hadith, but we ascertain the probability of the hadith using the principles of historical criticism to determine whether or not something is a probable saying, or whether elements of it are probable and other elements of it were likely interpolated and maybe even accidentally over the centuries before they were written down. So I suppose that concludes today's Friday afternoon Juma khutbah, pre-Shabbat khutbah on Islamic origins and the science, so-called, of hadith, in actuality the knowledge of hadith and isnad. Assalamu alaikum, shalom aleichem, and to everybody who is keeping and guarding the holy Shabbat, Shabbat shalom.